Modern Christianity has become so intertwined with wealth and prosperity that 84% of American megachurches now have their own coffee shops and retail spaces. But what would Jesus think about that?
That's quite a striking statistic. How did we end up so far from the original teachings?
Well, I keep coming back to this powerful verse from Matthew. No one can serve two masters. Jesus explicitly states you'll either hate one and love the other. There's no middle ground when it comes to serving God versus money.
You know what's fascinating? Studies show that churches in the highest income areas spend an average of 71% more on buildings and facilities than those in low-income areas.
Exactly. And here's what really gets me. We're in this bizarre situation where modern Christianity has become incredibly comfortable with wealth accumulation. Even though historical records show early Christians practiced radical resource sharing.
The contrast is pretty stark when you think about it. I mean, archaeological evidence from the 1st century shows Christian communities had common treasuries and shared living spaces.
And what's really interesting is that even if someone wanted to live according to these original teachings today, there's literally no structure for it. The whole system works against it, like swimming upstream in a rapid.
So you're saying it's more than just individual choices, it's about having an entire supportive community structure.
Precisely. And historians point to the Protestant Reformation as a key turning point. While it addressed many issues, it also dismantled the monastic systems that supported communal living. Before that, you had entire communities practicing shared economics.
Well, that's fascinating. I had no idea. The Reformation played such a role in this transformation.
Think about it, those early Christian communities were essentially creating alternative societies. Historical documents show they had different economic systems, different ways of organising daily life. But today, the infrastructure just isn't there anymore.
You know what's really striking about that Matthew verse? The absoluteness of it. It doesn't say it's difficult to serve both God and money. It says it's impossible.
Right. And yet somehow we've created this version of Christianity that not only tolerates but often celebrates wealth accumulation. Recent surveys show that 76% of American Christians believe financial prosperity is compatible with their faith.
That makes me wonder about how people reconcile these contradictions in their daily lives.
Well, it's fascinating because archaeological evidence shows early Christian communities actually had systems for wealth redistribution. Like they would literally collect resources and redistribute them based on need.
So when did this shift really start happening? When did we begin moving away from that model?
Historical records indicate it was a gradual process that really accelerated during the Constantine era in the 4th century. As Christianity became the official religion of the Roman Empire, it started adapting to existing economic systems rather than challenging them.
That's quite a journey from radical economic message to mainstream acceptance of wealth.
And here's what's really mind-blowing. Studies show that in the first 3 centuries of Christianity, there's no evidence of church buildings or professional clergy. The whole concept of institutional wealth just wasn't part of the picture.
So we're talking about a fundamental transformation in how faith was practiced.
Exactly. And you know what's particularly challenging? Even if someone wanted to fully embrace these teachings today, they'd have to somehow do it while still operating within our current economic system.
That does seem like quite a conundrum. Are there any modern groups trying to bridge this gap?
Well, there are some interesting experiments happening. Like there's a growing new monastic movement, about 5,000 communities worldwide now, trying to reimagine what Christian community could look like in the 21st century.
That's encouraging to hear that some people are trying to recapture that original spirit.
And maybe that's where we need to start, by really grappling with these contradictions and imagining what it might look like to take Jesus' teachings about wealth and community seriously in our modern context. The gap is there, but maybe it's not unbridgeable.
That's quite a hopeful way to look at it despite all the challenges.
Well, sometimes the biggest changes start with simply acknowledging where we are and imagining where we could be. History shows us that radical transformations are possible. They just take time and intention.